welcome to the Martial Perspective. Today is April 14th, 2026, and I have a very special guest with me today. This is Rob Ingram, Master Rob Ingram, with the host of the McDojo Life. Thank you for being on today, sir.
Well,
And I
not a
want to wish
master
you
yet, but one day.
I want to wish you a very happy birthday because I understand it recently was your birthday.
Yeah, it was my birthday Monday. I'm 41 in the martial arts industry now. My first class ever was on my 12th birthday, so I have now officially been in martial arts for 29 years of my life. Definitely not a master by any means, shape, or form. Never call myself that. Never asked to be called that. So I'm just a guy who does martial arts and likes it.
Well, you're like the police of the martial arts community with your McDojo Life series, and I really like what you're doing. Um, what got you into the McDojo Life, sir?
It was actually a conversation. So I had already been in the martial arts industry for quite a while by the time I started, because McDojo Life now is about 13 years old. And at the time I was blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so my coach called in never does. My master is not somebody who calls in sick ever, and they happen to, which is amazing to me. So taught the noon class for him. We did some basic stuff. It was like triangle choke, arm bar from guard, transitioning, and then it was a noon class, so most people either didn't have to go to work or they had to go back to work very quickly. So the people who didn't have to work, we just kind of stood around and we were talking about McDojos. The subject came up, and McDojo is a term that's been around longer than I've ever been. I'm in martial arts forever. And while we were on that subject, there was actually a guy there, and it was his very first class ever. And so everyone left, and he stayed when I was about to lock up. He was like, "Hey, I'm a little embarrassed. Could you do me a favor, just kind of explain what McDojo is to me?" And so I explained to him at the time what my best of my knowledge was of what a McDojo was, and he just asked me a very simple, basic day one white belt question: Why doesn't anybody do anything about that? And I was like, "That's a good question." So that night, I couldn't get it out of my head. It just kept rotating. And I was like, you know what? I've been in this industry a long time and I have so many questions I haven't really dug into. I've just kind of been going through the motions. So I looked into it and I started discovering all kinds of things like the amount of pedophilia, the amount of rape, fraud, extortion, sometimes murder, um, the fact that you need nothing to start a martial arts facility. I had always assumed, even when I had my own, that there was something I was missing, and you don't need anything. You can just start. You don't need a background check. Hell, you don't need a business license. You can just kind of do it sole proprietor style. And so it's one of those things that you feel there's something done about these things. Somebody should be calling them out. And so because of that conversation that I had with him, I started McDojo Life the next day.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So, I mean, what what's your purpose with the McDojo Life? What do you want to achieve with the McDojo Life?
I mean, ultimately, it's about 5 rules. It has nothing to do with my opinion. I always hated the fact that when I first started researching, I would find something like Bullshido forums, which I do believe Bullshido forums has a place. I don't think there's anything wrong with people having open dialogue and discussion. But what I did notice is it kind of became this echo chamber for people who really liked themselves a lot. And it wasn't about the martial arts industry, it was about their individual egos. People would complain about very semantical things that just don't fucking matter. So I pardon my language. And
You're
they just
fine.
don't matter. Like the things that don't matter are like, how long does it take to get a black belt? Well, that's an individualistic issue. The individual is going to determine when they should or should not have a black belt. When you have someone like BJ Penn getting his black belt in like 3 years, no one blinks an eye. But when you have a Taekwondo black belt, no matter their pedigree, get a black belt in 3 years, they crap all over them. And it's not the art that they do. It has nothing to do with their skill as an individual. It has everything to do with the individual's ego who's poking fun at that person. I just didn't want to do that. So with the 5 rules of the page, it was all about very factual. Like, don't physically harm your students on purpose. That's very easily proven. There's so many cases of that we can see. That's not a guess. We know if somebody purposely injured a student. 2, don't financially defraud students. Ripping them off in any way, shape, or form financially is messed up, right? Don't lie about your belt rank or your fight record. Don't. There's no need to do that. That's usually the first conversation that an instructor has with their students. And if you're going to lie to their face right when you meet them, you'll lie about everything else, right? Don't mislabel technique or start a cult, right? So, like, when you're doing things like saying, all right, we're going to do cardio kickboxing, there's nothing wrong with that. You want to do Aikido? Nothing wrong with that. You want to do any art? That's okay. But don't lie to your students about the capability of what that art is for. For instance, if somebody does cardio kickboxing and you as a coach are telling them they're going to become the world's greatest kickboxer, you are lying to their face. Cardio kickboxing does not make you a kickboxer. It makes you good at cardio kickboxing, and there's nothing wrong with that. So
Right.
that's another major issue. And then, of course, obviously, no sex offenders. No sex offenders. Don't rape students. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how young they are. It doesn't matter age, sex, creed, religious beliefs. Doesn't matter. Fuck around with your students in a way that's not consenting. And then, of course, the last one is, the cult-like behavior with the, no-touch knockouts and stuff like that. As much as I wish we could knock people out with our mind, we can't. So maybe people should stop that crap. But those are what I stick to.
Right. Well, those are all. I like it. I really do. Now, a lot of people, what a lot of people don't realize, at least here in the state of Ohio, if you're put in a position of power, right, you should never take advantage of that position of power, even if the participant is willing. So, if you have a student that's willing to engage into a relationship with you, because you have that teacher-student relationship, you should not. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think that, I've noticed like a double-edged sword with that, right? So I've met both sides of the aisle. I've met martial arts instructors who met their wives when their wives were their students, and they were married for like 50 years, which is great. I'm glad that that relationship worked out. They weren't underage, they were consenting adults. I think that individual schools' policies should be very clear about dating. I think it's very important that your instructor, whoever the instructor is or school owner, is very open and honest with their students about what that dynamic should be or about what the consequences could be of that. But I think that when you are in a position of authority, my opinion is probably best to stay out of that dating pool as best as possible. But you're also human. You're also an adult. They're an adult. You can make adult decisions. It just does make the waters just more of a gray area and muddy than just staying out of that pool.
Right, because as a school owner or a head instructor of a school, and you enter into some sort of relationship with a student, how can you tell the other students, the teenagers that may have a fancy, how can you tell them not to have a relationship when, I mean, it's basically lead by what you're doing. And if you're doing the wrong thing, you're showing the students that that's okay.
Yeah. I used to, when I taught kids full time, so when I started teaching at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy I was at, I mean, I've been teaching for a long time. I used to teach karate, and I built a striking program at the old academy I was at, things like that. But teaching kids, there's a very interesting dynamic between the instructor, the child, and the parent. And when you're teaching kids, a lot of instructors forget you're not their parent. You're not their parent. Your job as an instructor, you have been hired. You're not a temporary parent. You're not even a temporary guardian, really. Like, I make sure that all the parents stay when I teach. But, sometimes that's inconvenient for them, but they need to be there just in case. Also need to listen. And one of the speeches that I used to give the kids was, it's my job to teach you how. I'm going to teach you how to punch. I'm going to teach you how to kick. I'm going to teach you how to throw, submit, whatever the case is. It's my job to teach you how. It's your parents' job to teach you when. That's not my job. My job is not to teach you ethics, as much as that would be great, because your parents' ethics are not the same as your individual ethics. And so when we all, as instructors, try to make this blanket statement of ethics to children, it's not really our job. Our job is to give them an outlet. Our job is to be a good mentor. Our job is to make sure that they are learning something that's conducive to making them some way, shape, or form. But you can't fight it. So if you wind up saying something in terms of ethics to a child, and the parent goes home and tells them, no, you're not going to listen to that, you're fighting a losing battle, and you're putting yourself at a deficit. So in terms of ethics inside of a martial arts facility, I believe a lot of that is very built in. Like, it's crazy what kind of happens on the mat. Like, fuck around and find out is very much a thing you learn on that, right? You get in there,
Yeah.
you maybe bite off more than you can chew with your mouth, or maybe you do something that you shouldn't be doing, and all of a sudden it's going to bite you in the ass on the mat. You're not working hard, it'll show on the mat. It's like the mat has a way of teaching you lessons that don't need to be taught. You just learn them.
Right.
And I think the crazy part about a lot of schools now is we're in this odd time where the martial arts industry is, in my opinion, in a renaissance. I think since 1993, when the UFC popped on the scene, it created a necessity for martial arts to grow as a whole. And they were just getting eaten up by jiu-jitsu. They were getting eaten up by sambo, getting eaten up by wrestlers. And so all of these other arts were forced to elevate their game and forced to get better at what they did. And they have. And we have people like Stephen Thompson, Raymond Daniels, GSP, Baz Rutten. They all represent karate. And people forget that often. They forget that Baz Rutten is a Kyokushin black belt, and GSP is a Kyokushin black belt, and Stephen Thompson is a Kempo karate black belt. Lyoto Machida, Shotokan black belt. So people like to crap on those things, but they forget that those things have been evolving. The thing that hasn't evolved, unfortunately, it seems, is that we have kind of become short-sighted on the ethics part of martial arts. And while I don't believe that it's our job to force ethics down people's throats, I also do believe we should lead by some sort of example. And so if you're going to get out there, you're going to teach kids, you need to understand the responsibility, even teaching adults, the responsibility of yourself, how to hold yourself to some standard that these people can look up to, because whether you like it or not, the moment you become a coach, you become someone's mentor. It just is how it works. That's what you signed up for, whether you like it or not. So you do have to lead by some example. I think the low-hanging fruit is at least a little bit of honesty with your students.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So when you walk into a school, how do you identify is it as a legit school or if it's a McDojo? What are some key aspects to look for?
The average person, when they walk into a martial arts facility, only knows to ask one question, and that's very unfortunate. And that question is probably maybe not even the 10th question I would ask. The first question most people ask is, how much does it cost?
Yeah, I was going to say.
They forget there are so many other things that are, there's so many other things that are more important before we get there. I'll ask how much something costs if I already know what the value of that is. If I look at something I've never seen before, like let's say it's a fruit I've never seen before at a grocery store, I will look to see if it's something that I would like. I will sample the fruit. I will try it out. And then if I like it, I will care about the price, because that means I'm willing to buy it. If I'm willing to buy something sight unseen and just ask willy-nilly what the price is, that means that you're not focusing on anything of value. You're only focusing on your pocketbook. And while once you get to the end of the class, the conversation, yes, that will be the thing that does come up. But the first question you should be asking is, do you guys do background checks? It's the first question right off the bat anyone should ask. Or do you guys do background checks for anyone who is teaching or anybody who is a volunteer here? If you do not, my suggestion to anyone is that's where our conversation stops. Class stops, trial stops, everything stops. If that studio does not do background checks, that means they don't give a shit about your safety. That's all there is to it. And I've heard people over the years go, well, that costs too much. It's $35. $35. It's not too much. And if your school cannot afford $35, your school is run like shit. Like, learn how to make $1 so that way you can protect your students. Like, running a school like a business is not a bad thing, and that's where people mess this up. If you run your business like a business, it will continue to be your business. If you run your business like a hobby, it will become your hobby again. So if you really want this to do well for your students, you should focus on those things that are important, because if you go to any corporate, I promise you they're doing background checks. Why? Because safety is important, right? So that would be number one.
Everything.
Yeah, you have a responsibility for your students and your business to make sure it's safe. So number one, I always ask if there's background checks here, and if not, see ya. Because I have no clue if this person's a sex offender. If you're putting your child in the hands of somebody who's got multiple offenses, you have no clue if the person who's behind the counter is someone who's defrauded people financially and now they have access to your credit card information. You don't know any of these things if you haven't just done that. So that'd be the first one. The second one is cleanliness. As soon as you walk in, there are a lot of people who swear up and down by a good gym's a dirty gym. That's bullshit. A dirty gym is a good way for you to get sick, get staph infection. A dirty gym is a good way for you to just basically be in an uncomfortable position, because when it's dirty and it smells all the time, that means that cleanliness is not paramount to that school owner, which also means that safety is not there, because if it's not clean, it's not safe. So that's the second one. And then the last one for me, we've asked the background checks. They're like, cool, we got background checks. Awesome. We look around, it's clean, right? Easiest way to do that is as soon as you get there, go to the bathroom. If there's pee all over the place and it's dirty in the bathroom, I promise you everything else is dirty. So, but then after that, the last thing is, how are they treating everyone else on your first day? They're going to treat you like gold. They're going to. It's your first day. They're going to treat you like you were the most valuable person in that room, because you are. But you wind up going in, it's your first day, they want to get you signed up, they want to get you excited. How are they treating everyone else? Because after you sign up, you're one of them. So if they're ignoring everyone else, or if it's not very organized, or you can tell that they're not really paying much attention to the students on the individual, giving them all the love in the world, you're about to be those people. So like, if you look and they're not treating them well, you're done. It doesn't matter how nice they treat you, because that is your first day. After that, you're just like everybody else. So hopefully everybody else is having fun and enjoying themselves. It's a learning environment that you can see yourself growing with. So those are my three.
Well, it's kind of funny you say that, because when I first got in the military, my very first day in the military, we do our bag things. They're yelling at us, screaming at us. But when we get into the bunk, and they let us sit there for like 24 hours, just sleep, and then they were like really, really nice to us. And then when lights on and you wake up, it was on. You're one of it just you gave me a flashback there. It's really funny that you said that. So the next thing I want to speak about is the disconnect between the martial arts, because I've interviewed a lot of Kempo people, a lot of Taekwondo people, a lot of Shotokan karate people. What is the disconnect between in the martial arts? Like, I know Kenpo's, there's some influx going there. I don't know what the whole disconnect is. I know Taekwondo, there's some disconnect between the Kwans and things going on there, and there's some influx going on there. What do you think that is?
It's ego. It's very simple. It's always ego. Like, if you look at any martial art, even based off of a school, right? Typically, the way that these things fraction or they break apart is there's an owner, sometimes the founder, whatever the case may be, right? Depends on how far up. And then there's a top student. And then eventually there's fallout between the owner and the top student for whatever reason, right? And one of them is ego. One of them is. It's either the student, who's the top student, feels like they should have more than they do, which they might. They might actually deserve that, right? That's just how growth works. Or the school owner does not want to boost up that top student. So it just kind of depends on the situation. But usually that's where the split happens. And then once that happens, it becomes, rather than two consenting and understanding adults going, you know what, we had our time. I truly appreciate everything that you've done. It's time for me to do my own thing, i.e. somebody like a Jean-Jacques and an Eddie Bravo, right? It's like, that's great. That's a great dynamic. Jean-Jacques and Eddie Bravo still train together. They still get along. Eddie Bravo still shows his lineage as Jean-Jacques. He still shows that on his wall. Like, when you go to 10th Planet headquarters, he's still got the faces of the masters up there, even though it's a more less traditional style of jiu-jitsu, right? It's a much more modern version. But he still shows and pays respect to the person who came before him, and Jean-Jacques pays respect to Eddie Bravo, and that's how it should be. But unfortunately, most of these arts, you end up becoming this odd king of a kingdom, and it's made up. It's all fantasy. None of it's real. You're going to spend more time training than you are fist fighting people in the street. Most
Yeah.
people who train will never fist fight another human being on the street, or they already did fight somebody on the street. That's why they started in the first place and then never got into another fight again, right?
Right. Right.
Everything else is competition or inside the dojo. So it's not, when I look at the fragmentation of things, I think about something like an old coach had told me one time. He said, everybody in the martial art is a nerd. Everybody who trains martial arts is a huge nerd. And that stuck with me because I do believe that's true. But I think something that stood out to me as an epiphany was kind of like how people win the lottery. So when you win the lottery, you ever watch some of these shows about people who win the lottery? They didn't have almost any money at all. Rich
Right.
people don't tend to play the lottery. Like, rich people already got money. They don't need to waste it on gambling, right? But
Right.
people who aren't very rich, they'll play the lottery in hopes of being rich, get that money, and then they piss it away all within the first year.
Yeah.
The reason that they get rid of so much millions of dollars is because they've never known what it's like to earn that dollar, or how to save a dollar, or how to do well with money. So giving them more money didn't make them better money. Well, martial arts is very similar. People who join martial arts typically are nerds. Giant nerds. Somebody who doesn't have very high self-esteem. You have somebody who might not look favorably upon themselves before they start, and then all of a sudden they're being called coach or master or sensei, and it happens fairly quick. All of a sudden you're the assistant. You're get a little in the martial arts industry. Well, now, very similar to the lottery thing, you don't know what it's like to have all that confidence. You don't know what it's like to have that ego. You don't know what it's like to hold that weight of being looked up to as a mentor of somebody, and all of a sudden you are. And a lot of people, unfortunately, take advantage of that, and that's where these places of ego come in, and that's where these people start to feel you're the power, take advantage of people. They fraction off and they say, give the finger to the person who came before them, or they give the finger to their students. Like, they don't realize what's really happening here isn't really the art. It's them battling their ego. And that, unfortunately, is a huge part of martial arts. You have to be able to control that. If you're in a life or death situation, you can't just be egotistical. Like, you have to be very self-deprecating and understand that you could fucking die. So you might want to hold on to that and let that ego go for a second and be realistic about where you stand. And in martial arts, unfortunately, it is a lot of LARPing. It's a lot of people pretending to be king of a castle that's not real.
Right. So you got a few martial artists that believe that they are the kingmakers. That if you don't follow their, that, they're nothing. Um, what do you say to those people?
What do I say to what people? I'm sorry.
I said you have a few people in martial arts that believe that they are the kingmakers. That they live and die by the sword. If you're not under their lineage or you're not under their tutelage, you're nothing. What do you say to those type of people?
Nothing. I wish them well. I mean, that's not going to work out well for them in the long run. I don't, me personally, it's not my job to dictate their particular standards or ethics. I think that if that's how they feel, then there's nothing that you can say that will change their mind. There's really no point of trying. All you can really do is just do the best that you can do and help out the people in your sphere. And, a broken clock is right twice a day. So, like, even if they are egotistical asshole, they probably still do some good shit here and there, but like, everyone's shaded, in my opinion. I mean, you have good people who do bad things from time to time, and you have bad people who do good things from time to time, and everybody else is in the middle. We're just trying to figure this shit out. So, like, with somebody who's in a position of authority, let's say of even over 250 students, right? That's a lot of authority, and that's a lot of people come. I don't think that most people who join martial arts do it because they want to be the king of a castle. I don't think that's why they start. They do it because they like it, right? And then they just happen to be eventually put into a position of authority, or put in a position where it's like, all right, you could either quit martial arts or you could do it full time. Like, it's not a lot of people who are just like still hobbyists after they've been doing it for like 30 years. Some people are, which is great. I'm glad they can. But a lot of people do around that time make a decision to shit or get off the pot. They become a coach, or they get a little more involved in some way. And that is a lot of responsibility, and some people are just going to fuck that up. They're just going to mess it up. And,
Right.
to them, I hope they figure out a better path that's more healthy for them and their students.
Great thing. Absolutely great thing. So I noticed that in martial arts, people love the accolades. They love to be recognized. They love to be look at me. This is what I did. You know, we all like a little praise, and we all like a little accolades here and there when it's deserved. I've been noticing a lot of martial arts Hall of Fame popping up lately, and there's some credible ones. I just went to the Cleveland Martial Arts Hall of Fame ceremony, and it was an amazing experience. They put on a great seminar series and everything like that. It does not cost anything for an inductee to get in there, and it's a legit to me a legit martial arts Hall of Fame. But then you've got all these other martial arts Hall of Fames that are popping up. What do you think about that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with accolades. I think, and I've always, when I was a kid anyway, to backtrack my thinking here, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be in a martial arts magazine. That was like a bucket list thing for me. I wanted that to be a part of my career because even when I was 12, I was thinking about this in the long run, which I feel very fortunate that I did know what I wanted to do at a young age. Most people don't have a clue.
No.
So I just got lucky, but that wasn't a thing. And I do every time I'm in a magazine or something, I wind up putting in like a frame and I hang it on my wall, and it feels good, right? I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with martial arts Hall of Fames. I think that if you're charging someone to Hall of Fame, I think that's a problem. I think that then it feels disingenuous. I think you have to pay to play in terms of getting a acknowledgement that they've done something great. And there's so many good martial artists on this planet. I mean, regardless of style, they're just good people. And sometimes it might be a good person who picked an art that isn't very useful in combat. But if they inspired someone, I think they deserve to have a little bit of a nod. I don't think they should have to pay for it. Like, think about how many martial artists that inspired us that aren't even real. The Ninja Turtles are not real. Like, the Power Rangers are not real, right? But how many
No.
millions of people joined martial arts because they saw the Power Rangers and the Ninja Turtles, right? So
Right.
now, obviously, behind those suits are real martial artists, but still, like, we are inspired all the time. And I think that's something that maybe misses the mark a little bit with martial arts is a lot of people, especially nowadays, put so much emphasis on, will this work in real life? Like, I mean, that depends. Like, there's a million and one things that could go wrong in a real life situation. One of them being shot, getting shot. Like,
Right.
did they inspire somebody? Did they help somebody? Did they elevate the industry in some way, shape, or form? Sometimes that gets overlooked, and I think a lot of times that's what typically gets picked up in the Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
Any Hall of Fame is usually you're getting acknowledged for maybe that stuff that people don't see. Maybe you helped a kid, you help someone with cerebral palsy, you donate the toys for tots. I don't know, but if you're doing good, I do believe you should be acknowledged for the good. We acknowledge everybody for the bad all the damn time. Might as well give them a thumbs up. Good job, pat on the back from here every once in a while.
Can we see a McDojo Hall of Fame in the distant future someday?
Well, my goal in the future, right now, I focus a lot on Academy. So with Academy Safe, we are an accreditation system to get martial arts studios to do the things that they're not required to do. So rather than doing the McDojoLife thing where I call up frauds, we're giving the right thing. Background check, CPR, first aid, safe sport, concussion training, defibrillators on site, cameras on site, etc. That's a lot of work, and they do it. And to me, that's huge. I think that is the Hall of Fame to me, as those people who are going above and beyond when they do not have to. That matters to me. But when it comes to like McDojoLife, like giving frauds like an award or anything like that, while that's funny, I think it's hilarious. I actually won't be doing that, but I will be hopefully within the next year or two starting a headquarters in Vegas. I think I was going to do a headquarters in Jacksonville, but my movie actually took off, so now we have all the funding. So I moved out to LA. So thank God I didn't get that property in Jacksonville. But
Right.
yes, now I'm in LA, trying to finish that project. So, those are on the forefront of what I have going on. Maybe before I do an award or anything like that.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to see that you're doing well for yourself. When is your movie going to be coming out? Do you know?
We finish it this year, so I moved out here in October. When I got here, 2 weeks after I moved here, it's like the seas opened. I got all the funding for the film. So we got Jocko Willink as an executive producer of our film, which it's amazing to have him helping and backing the project and being a part of it and using well inside. But we got two of the best litigation lawyers on the planet to come on board. I wish that was an exaggeration, but it's not. I'm not blowing smoke. They're fantastic. So they are on board as well. That helps us out legally with the things we will have to do. And then we now have 38 days in filming ahead of us. We already shot 2 days. We're finishing paperwork right now for getting the funding transferred, which is complicated and annoying. But now that's our goal is to finish the potatoes and then editing for the rest of the year.
Oh, wow. You're a busy guy. I can't thank you enough for being on our show, man. I mean, I didn't realize how busy you were. I knew you were a busy guy, but I didn't know you had all these irons in the fire, which is, I'm very thankful for you to be
Oh,
on the
yeah,
show.
I'm a workaholic. Yeah, not a problem, man. I always said I'll answer every direct message I ever get. I'll be on anyone's show, whoever asks.
Again, I hope this is the last time we speak, sir. I mean, you're welcome to come on anytime and spread your knowledge. I mean, you have a very great insight into martial arts, and I really, really enjoy where you're going with this, sir. So,
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you for having me on. I love talking shop.
Absolutely. Is there any parting word you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Not off the top of my head. I think that if anybody out there is like looking to get an education in the martial arts industry, whatever that art is, make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, not for what other people want. People get caught in that trap all the time. Somebody asks me, hey, what's the best martial art to start off with? I always tell them the one that makes you happy. Do the thing that to make you want to continue to train. If I tell you wrestling and your wrestling coach is a dick and it winds up hurting you right off the bat in the first week, you're probably not going to continue to train. If you want to go Aikido and Aikido makes you happy and that brings you joy and an inspiration to make you want to learn other martial arts or be a lifer in this, do that. And a lot of people, I think in my comment sections and stuff are just ignorant. There are a lot of ignorant people, and I don't censor them because I think that it's important that we have these open dialogues and conversations. Now, if somebody's personally attacking me, I give them the finger and I block them because I don't need that negative in my life. But if they're just having a conversation and it's heated and they're talking about something that, they're passionate about, sometimes people don't know how to control the way they speak. Those people do not speak for everyone. So don't look at a comment section and determine what martial art you do or don't. Go do the one that you think is fun. Go do the one that inspires you. Go do the one that makes you happy and brings you closer to your goals. That's not everybody else's opinion.
That's huge. So, well, thank you, sir, and I hope this isn't going to be the last time we speak. So I'd like to have you on.
Yeah, man, happy to hop on anytime.
Yeah, maybe 6 months we'll do this again, and we'll go from there. As always, like, share, and subscribe, and happy birthday, Mr. Rob, and thank you for being on the show. Stay with me.
Thank you.